This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Good evening, everyone. Hundreds of Tasmanian childcare workers have walked off the job today, joining nationwide rallies. Staff from more than 20 centres across the state have joined the escalating movement, demanding an increase to their pay.
At 3:20, childcare workers across the state walked off the job, bussing into rallies at Parliament Lawns in Hobart and City Park in Launceston, making their voices heard. These early childhood educators are joining a national movement demanding better pay.
Compared to male-dominated sectors with similar qualifications, men in those sectors are starting off at about $10 more per hour at the very base rate of pay.
Unions are pushing for a 30% increase in pay, saying the federal government needs to foot the bill, not the centres and parents.
If fees were to go any higher, we know that parents can't really afford that. The government needs to step up, fund the sector properly.
In response to today's rallies, the federal government says it respects the independence of the Fair Work Commission, which is currently considering the issue. It also criticised the union for inconveniencing parents, but some families are backing the action.
I believe that we should be recognising the work that these people are doing and the support that they're offering to the Australian public.
Katie Dunn has been working in the sector for 25 years. She says a passion for early education is her motivation.
For the work we do, we are really undervalued and we do it because we love it, but at the end of the day that love doesn't pay the bills.
Today's action isn't the end of this escalating dispute. Workers are vowing to continue their campaign. Unions are threatening full-scale shutdowns.
It won't just be an afternoon next time. They're talking about shutting down for a whole day and doing whatever it takes in order to get the professional wages and the equal pay that they deserve.
Parents are due for more disruption if a solution isn't reached by the 1st of February. Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
Tasmania's acute health services are understaffed and inappropriate for mental health patients, according to Australia's peak psychiatric body. A parliamentary inquiry is investigating the state's health system with calls for immediate action in the mental health space.
It's a scathing submission by Australia's peak psychiatry body, describing an inadequate service for mental health patients in Tasmania. The college highlights a critical shortage of mental health hospital beds compared to other states, an issue particularly in the Royal Hobart Hospital due to the limited space in the current temporary ward. Mental health patients being held up in emergency for days due to a lack of specialised beds, not aligned with best practice.
And that's one of the reasons why the government is providing an extra 11 mental health beds. I noticed that there have been some calls from some quarters for an additional 10 beds. The government does understand that there are extra demand pressures.
The Mental Health Council attributes demand pressures on a lack of options before patients require emergency.
This situation where people have to become unwell enough to require hospital care, and we're missing what we could have done to avoid them needing hospital care in the first place.
Workforce shortages exacerbating the problem, psychiatrist vacancies in the north and northwest, with several positions lost in the south.
The government have ignored those cries for help for so long. We are now at the state where the system is absolutely at breaking point and it just can't continue.
We're only seeing locums in all of our hospitals, so we don't see any continuation of care for the patients in Tasmania that are really under the most pressure.
The Mental Health Council says the government's Rethink strategy is on the way to improving service gaps in the youth and postnatal areas.
Make sure that we're actually filling those gaps to ensure that there's a complete continuum of care for people who have mental health care needs.
The parliamentary inquiry starts tomorrow. Jacqueline Robson, Southern Cross News.
A Deloraine man accused of shooting an 11-year-old girl is tonight out on bail after pleading not guilty to 2 charges. Nathan Richard Campbell appeared in the Launceston Magistrates Court today, charged with causing grievous bodily harm and recklessly discharging a firearm. The offences relate to the shooting of 11-year-old Phoenix Newitt at Deloraine last Tuesday night. The young girl is recovering in the Royal Melbourne Children's Hospital. Mr Campbell will next appear in the Supreme Court in late November. Tasmanian Wildlife Sanctuary is reporting one of its best breeding seasons to date. As you're about to see, caretakers are working around the clock to restore the state's most threatened species.
At Trawana Wildlife Sanctuary, these forester kangaroos have an extra spring in their step. And for good reason. Their numbers are growing, thanks to careful management over a number of years. At one stage, their kind was nearly wiped out.
And by the 1960s, that animal was cornered in the very far northeast corner of Tasmania we now know as Mount William or Wookalina National Park. And from that area, the kangaroos were then brought back into and managed back into populations around Tasmania.
85 kangaroos are now being managed here. They're relatively easy to look after day to day, but successful breeding requires a big picture approach.
A kangaroo couldn't survive on its own. They need to have a sense of belonging.
It is just one success story we're being shown as part of National Threatened Species Day. The Cape Barren goose, once on the brink of extinction too, is also seeing its numbers grow.
We have one of the most biodiverse continents on the planet, yet we have one of the highest extinction rates.
Perhaps the best known program is focused on breeding Tasmanian devils. This year has been the second most successful in Trawana's 40-year history.
We got six females this year with Joey, so 18 all up, so it's been quite a successful year.
Trawana has been breeding devils here for 32 years. It's the longest running conservation program of its kind in the country. It means little devils like Mopoke here can safely raise a family next year.
Slowly rebuilding our unique biodiversity. Tom Johnson, Southern Cross News.
Work to transform Launceston's derelict CH Smith site is ahead of schedule. Concrete started to be poured on the first level of the multi-storey car park today. Now the development will continue to be built up.
Car park completion is still aimed to be early February, March next year. But this ground level will be finished by November.
What we've got on site today is around 40 Tasmanians employed, putting down what is one of the largest concrete pours in the city's history.
Once the car park is completed, work will commence on the adjoining office block. That's expected to take all of 2018 to complete. Children across Tasmania are jumping into a big fundraising campaign. Students at St Mary's College have raised more than $15,000 for the Heart Foundation's Jump Rope for Heart.
The Jump Rope for Heart is a great way of getting the message out to kids that it's important to be active, and it's also fun.
Money raised will go towards research to help in the fight against heart disease. Tasmanians are being encouraged to think fast to help bring down our stroke statistics. This year, 1,500 Tasmanians are expected to have a stroke, but experts say they can be prevented.
Lillian Wong has survived 3 mini-strokes. She says it was around a decade ago when she first felt something wasn't right.
It was mainly in the speech area, and it was quite bizarre, and I'd never experienced that before.
This year, more than 1,500 Tasmanians are expected to go through similar situations.
Tasmania has one of the highest incidents of stroke in Australia.
But this National Stroke Week, survivors, hospital staff and the Stroke Foundation aim to change that.
Stroke in the 21st century is a very treatable disease, but it's a time-critical medical emergency. So it's really important that we get the fast message out. That's the critical signs of a stroke.
F is to check the face, A, the arms, S, speech, and T is for it's time to call 000.
If you feel you're feeling off, go and look in the mirror. Can you smile and both sides of your lips lift up simultaneously, or raise both arms?
To avoid having a stroke, Tasmanians are urged to get their blood pressure checked, keep physically active and watch their diet. Monika Dadson at Southern Cross News.
Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. Despite a good start to the session, the Australian share market has closed steady as investors worry about the possibility of another North Korean missile test on Saturday, the anniversary of the country's founding. The ASX 200 index has risen by 0.2 points. A short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 79.79 US cents and just over 87 Japanese yen.
The only side to stop North Launceston at home this year and are brimming with belief after dispatching the Roos. But Lauderdale will face a full-strength Bombers outfit on Saturday with the flag favourites welcoming back one of the competition's best in Jay Lockhart. During the week, Cricket Tasmania CEO Nick Cummins said the Lauderdale coach needed to toughen up after he raised issue with the hardness of the Blunston Arena surface. Notorious for his former on-field toughness, this was Winter's response.
If North Melbourne had played there last week, he would have a big kick up his Jackson from the AFL. And I'm happy to go out there pre-game, our next game, and do some tackling practice with Nick.
Lauderdale won't have to worry about the Blunston surface this Saturday though, and based on their form at UTAS Stadium this season, they're not too worried about the road trip either. Ryan Wiggins comes off a 7-goal performance against Clarence. Bryce Walsh and Phil Bell-Chambers will need to be on song against the class of the Bombers midfield, while Josh and Ben McGuinness will prove key to stopping the might of the flag favourites forward line.
They finished on top because they're the best team in the competition, so, you know, we're going to have our work cut out to go up there and have a crack at them.
Coming off a 2-week rest, the Bombers coach says preparation has been spot on, with his side chomping at the bit.
Yeah, that's why you play footy, is for finals and to play in the big games, and the boys are looking forward to it.
Zach Burt and Tom Bennett have starred down forward in recent times. Mark Walsh, Brad Cox-Goodyear and Alex Lee are in career best form in the Bombers midfield, while AFL hopeful Jay Lockhart returns into the side after 11 long weeks off with injury.
He's a great ball user and he's sort of naturally fit anyway, but he's done a lot of work in the gym and he's right to go.
We would certainly look at putting a lockdown on him as a defensive forward because he's caused us a lot of trouble over the years.
The opening bounce is at 4:30 with the winner straight through into the grand final. And footy fans certainly have their work cut out for them in voting for this year's TSL Mark of the Year, with the league selecting 15 of the season's best grabs to choose from. Lauderdale's Thor Boscott and Burnie's Blair Rubok managed to make the list twice for their hangers. People can make their selection through the TSL's website, with voting closing on September 13.
Good evening. Hobart, Launceston and Devonport all recorded 15 degrees today, while Burnie had 14 as the high. Friendly Beach is the top around the state, 17 there. Temperatures well below the September average. St Helens and Campania 15, Flinders Island, Wynyard and Grove all got to 14 today. Low Head, Strawn and King Island 13 degrees. A cold front did cross Tasmania, with the frontal cloud pictured there just to the west of the state moving through. We have low-level convective cloud over the southeast of the mainland and most of the nation cloud-free apart from the middle-level cloud over Western Australia. And the close-up shows a cloud moving up today, blowing over from the southwest. The central, north and east fared a little bit better than the rest of the state. Tomorrow the front moves over the Tasman Sea, trough still lying over the east and west coasts of the country. A high over South Australia extends across a wide area. Southwesterly winds at 20 to 30 knots, reaching 35 knots in the north and lower east, swells to 4.5 metres in southern waters. Minor flood warning is current for the Huon River, a flood watch for the Derwent, a gale warning from Sandy Cape to St Helens Point and from Wineglass Bay to Tasman Island, strong wind warning for remaining waters and a small craft wind alert for the lakes. Also, a warning to the state's sheep graziers, a bushwalkers alert for the central and western plateau districts, a road weather alert for snow and ice on roads down to 200 metres. And for tomorrow, a windy day for Hobart, a shower or two and 9. -1 for Huonville, becoming windy and 9 degrees, a top of 10 for Campania. Launceston, shower or two clearing during the day, 11 the top, 11 for Devonport, 11 the top also for Georgetown with a similar forecast. Burnie tomorrow, showery and windy, 11 the top, top of 10 for Strawn and 11 for Wynyard with a showery, windy day. And for the east, a possible shower, 13 for St Helens, 12 for Swansea, 10 the high for Port Arthur. To the weekend, and on Saturday, showers over the west, south and central areas, falling as snow to 500 metres. Showers over the west and far south on Sunday, easing later, fine over the remainder. Showers developing on Monday, moving across from the west. Partly cloudy and 26 in Perth. A morning shower for Adelaide and Canberra. A shower later for Melbourne and 14 degrees. Sunny weather for Sydney and Brisbane.